What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we're going to be talking about A Real Pain. Written and directed by Jesse Eisenberg, this film also stars Jesse Eisenberg alongside Kieran Culkin, Will Sharpe, Jennifer Grey, Liza Sadovi, and more. So I just got home from an early screening of A Real Pain, which was a film I was pretty excited to see because this is a sophomore directorial film for Jesse Eisenberg, who also wrote this film. You have Kieran Culkin in the film as well, and it's a drama comedy, and we don't get a whole lot of buddy comedies in general in theaters these days. A lot of times it tends to be the big tentpole films that we're getting in theaters, so comedy is one of those things we don't see an abundance of when it comes down to theatrically released films. So when I saw I was getting the chance to check out this movie, I was pretty excited to check it out. I'm also a fan of Kieran Culkin and Jesse Eisenberg, so I was excited to see what their performances were going to be like here and how the two of them are going to play off of one another. And the base premise of this film really intrigued me as well, because we have two cousins who haven't seen each other in quite some time, who are coming together after the death of their grandmother to visit where she was originally from, Poland. And over the course of time, they're going through a whole tourist tour that is showing them various places in Poland, but most notably kind of showcasing things that are part of her Jewish heritage. So they're exploring their own heritage, they're exploring where their grandmother comes from, and they're kind of reconnecting. We learned throughout the course of the film that they had a really close young childhood, and as time went on, as they got older and things like careers started to become a factor and slight distance started to become a factor, they weren't really as close anymore, and we start to learn that there is some trouble in that past. And Kieran Culkin's character is the one who is the two of them who is the most close to their grandmother who recently passed away. He's struggling with this, but he's also somebody who's incredibly charming and likable, very energetic, and can come into a room and connect with pretty much anyone. He has the ability to empathize with people a lot of ways. He can kind of see behind their eyes and see what kind of weight they're carrying on their shoulders. And so in a lot of ways, he is the most likable character in this film, somebody who's able to just really connect in a very human way. And then you have the character played by Jesse Eisenberg, who's the one that's put together a lot more, but he's the one that's kind of disconnected from family in a lot of ways. He hasn't really connected with his family that he grew up with for many years, but he has his new family, his wife and his daughter that he's raising. He's got a career, and so in that he's kind of found himself just working, raising a family, doing that whole thing, but not really connecting with the family that he grew up with. And so we learn over the course of the film that there is a little bit of a resentment there between these two cousins because they were really close, and Kieran Culkin's character doesn't really feel like Jesse Eisenberg really cares about him all that much. Like, where you been? Where's this cousin that I used to be, completely attached to the hip to throughout the course of this film? With that said, though, this is a really touching film. I found it to be an interesting film that I enjoyed quite a bit, that in a lot of ways is a pretty straightforward buddy comedy film. But add in the fact that you have these two cousins that are reconnecting and going through these funny antics with each other throughout the course of the film, but also kind of touching on some, dark heritage with their family being Jewish and going to Poland to go on this, tour group and learn things about their family's past and go to various places that unfortunately very dark things happened when it came down to Jews in Poland, and even visiting their grandmother's original home in Poland. Throughout the course of the film, there are a lot of emotional beats, as well as we kind of tackle some darker themes when it comes down to their heritage, and we get to learn more about what kind of tore them apart as the years have gone on. And this film, when it comes down to its title, I feel like can be utilized in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, it has to do with the pain that we carry, the pain that we all feel. I think this film really does a good job of showcasing the idea that we all live with pain, whether it be generational pain, whether it be pain of our own personal experience, pain of that is happening in the world around us. And we all have different ways that we kind of take that all in. Some people just kind of brush it off and choose to kind of be distracted by something else and not allow the pain of the world to really weigh them down, when in the grand reality is it does. Some people don't let the pain kind of phase them at all until it's a little bit too late. Then there are those who are living with that pain with them all the way. And then you have the more comedic way that the title can be taken, which is that you have these two cousins. You have Jesse Eisenberg, who's a little bit more put together, and he's sometimes a little bit annoyed by Kieran Culkin. And so Kieran Culkin's character can kind of feel like a real pain. I think the film does a lot to kind of have this interesting title that means a couple of things throughout the course of the film. And the film in general tackles the idea of grief and pain and how we carry that over the course of years, not only on a heritage level, but also just on a personal level. And I thought that the film tackled all of that really, really well. If I had to kind of criticize this film for anything, I would say that the film is a little bit slow at times. I think at a lot of moments, it is necessary for the film to slow down and give us those dialogue-centric moments that really allow us to kind of see behind the layers of these characters. But there were a handful of moments that I did think were a little bit too slow. But ultimately, I found this film to be really entertaining and exciting to watch. I found myself laughing at a lot of moments throughout the course of the film. But more than anything, I found myself really engaged in the journey. I found myself really engaged in these two cousins that are mismatched, these two cousins that are completely different, and I think it's something that a lot of people can connect to. When I look back at my childhood, I had an abundance of cousins that I was incredibly close to, that were essentially like other brothers and sisters to me, that my sister and I would spend time with all the time. And as I've gotten older, while I still, communicate with some of them, while we've all got our own jobs, we all have our own lives, our own bills, many of them have kids, are raising families, have been married, have been divorced, we're not all as close as we used to be, and there is that disconnect. And I think that this film kind of tackles the, sad reality that as we get older, a lot of times the family that was pivotal to our kind of growing up eventually kind of starts to fade away. That doesn't always happen for everybody, but it happens for a lot of people. And I think that this film kind of touches on a really human side of life. And I think that in general, I would say that this film is a human story. This is a very human movie that touches on very human things, and not only touching on things like heritage and kind of generational pain, but just touching on just normal thing of growing up and kind of disconnecting from those in our lives that we were once really close to. And I think Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin do a great job when it comes down to their performances throughout the course of the film. They very much feel like family that hasn't seen each other in a long time. That little bit of awkwardness that you kind of expect for those kind of moments, the moments where you kind of instantly kind of reconnect in a way that it feels like old times, but still some of those moments that can kind of rub each other the wrong way because you aren't as close as you used to be. And I think that Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin really just had great chemistry throughout the entirety of the film that really sold those moments and allowed some of the really touching moments in this film to really land. And with all that said, I think it's important that I mention, in case it is a sensitive subject matter for you, or if you are of Jewish descent as well, that the film does tackle some things about the past of Jews and the Holocaust. They actually do go to locations that had to do with the Holocaust. So if that is a heavy subject matter for you, I feel like it's worth mentioning here that it is something that the film tackles, and it is pretty heavy in those moments. But overall, I think that this is a really solid drama comedy. I don't think this is something that's going to blow everybody's socks off when it comes down to a narrative. But if you're looking for just like a good human story in a movie, something that can make you chuckle, but also make you think, I think that A Real Pain is definitely worth your time. And I think if you're a fan of Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin, they both give really solid performances here that honestly just, I think made me think a lot about family, made me think a lot about the pain that I carry, the pain that my family has carried, and the way that the world carries pain, the way that we see the pain through social media every single day, the sad things happening around the world, and how at the same time we're so inundated with distractions to kind of move us away from that pain. I think the film tackled some pretty interesting things that made me think about it on my drive home, and ultimately I think this is definitely one of my more positively outlooked films for me of the year for sure. I think this is one that I'll definitely look back on and be like, yeah, that was a really solid watch. This is also one of those movies that I feel like on future watches, I can see myself enjoying more and more and more, and some of those criticisms I might have about it being slow in certain moments might start to fade away as time goes on. So that's going to be my thoughts on A Real Pain. Pretty straightforward, simple review here. I thought this was a solid time, and I think that it's definitely worth your time at the theaters. So I look forward to hearing the various opinions. So hit that like button, comment your thoughts, subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.